The morning Eli Mercer arrived in Redwater Valley, the sky was still a soft, washed-out blue, the kind that made everything feel quieter than it really was. He stepped off the old ranch truck and took a land stretching outward like an unmoving ocean. Frost on the grass, long fences cutting through the dawn, and horses shifting lazily in the cold. He tried to steady his breath. A new place, a new start. Or at least, that's what he kept telling himself. Cole Braddock was already outside, leaning against a saddle rack, as if he'd been up for hours. Everyone said the rancher was built from the land itself. Broad shoulders, calm eyes, and a seriousness that never seemed to crack. When he noticed Eli approaching, he pushed off the rack and gave a small nod, the kind that carried more weight than a handshake. "You Mercer?" he asked. Eli nodded. "Yes, sir." Cole's eyes lingered on him for a moment too long, not judging, just noticing things. The worn boots, the cautious posture, and something else, something guarded in Eli's expression. "Work starts early here," Cole said. "Hope you're not one of those ranch hands who needs a sunrise to wake up." "I don't sleep much anyway," Eli replied, softer than he intended. Cole didn't press him. Instead, he motioned toward the fields. "Let's get you familiar with the place." The two walked across the yard, Eli slightly behind, watching how Cole moved, steady, purposeful, grounded. It had been a long time since Eli felt that kind of steadiness in anyone. He brushed the thought away. He wasn't here to feel anything. He was here to work, to forget. By the time the sun pushed over the ridge, Eli was already knee-deep in chores. Feeding the horses, hauling tack, checking the fences. Cole didn't hover, but he watched from a distance, taking quiet note of how Eli carried himself. There was skill there, but also stiffness, like someone who knew the job but was fighting off memories that tried to resurface. Mid-morning, Eli was repairing a loose rail on one of the gates when a horse spooked nearby. The sudden crack of hooves against the dirt startled him, and before he knew it, he backed up too quickly, slipping and smacking his arm against the fence post. He hissed in pain. Cole was at his side almost immediately. "You all right?" he asked, voice low, steady. Eli nodded, embarrassed. "Just surprised me." Cole crouched down, inspecting Eli's arm but never touching it. His nearness alone felt strangely grounding. "You're shaking," Cole observed. "It's nothing," Eli insisted, stepping back. He didn't want anyone close enough to see through him. Cole's eyes lifted to meet his. They weren't hard or demanding, just knowing, like he'd seen that same tremble in someone else once before. "You handle horses like a man who's done this his whole life," Cole said, "but you react like someone who's been hurt recently." The air thickened between them. Eli swallowed, forcing down the old ache rising in his chest. "I don't talk about the past." "Sometimes the past talks for you," Cole replied softly. Eli looked away, focusing on the horizon. The land always gave him something to look at when people's eyes felt too heavy. They went back to work without another word. Cole didn't push, didn't pry, but every so often Eli caught him glancing over, as to try and figure out a puzzle he wasn't sure he should solve. Around noon, Sarah Braddock appeared on the porch, waving both men inside for food. She was gentle-eyed and warm, offering hospitality the way some people offered air. Eli noticed the way she smiled at him, but also the way Cole didn't smile back at her. Not fully, not the way a husband might. There was something strained in the space between them, a quiet distance Eli pretended not to see. After eating, Eli stepped outside to get fresh air. The valley spread before him, peaceful, untouched, and he let the silence settle into him. It was easier to breathe here, easier to hide. Then footsteps approached behind him. "You don't have to tell me everything," Cole said from a few feet away. "But you should know, this ranch is a place where people start over. Happens more often than you'd think." Eli kept his eyes on the hills. "Starting over doesn't erase what you're running from." "No," Cole agreed, voice dropping a shade lower, "but it makes it hurt less." Eli wasn't sure why, but the sincerity in Cole's tone shook something loose inside him. He clenched his jaw, trying to keep his thoughts in order. He didn't want to depend on anyone, especially not a married man, especially not someone like Cole, someone who radiated steadiness he didn't deserve. Cole stepped closer, Not touching, but close enough that Eli could feel the warmth of him in the cold air. "Eli," he said quietly, "who hurt you?" The words threaded through Eli like a wind through broken timber. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Instead, he turned away, walking back toward the barn, leaving Cole standing in the doorway, watching, waiting, and wondering about the man who carried a storm behind calm eyes. And for the first time since Eli arrived, the valley felt like it was holding its breath.
The next few days settled into a quiet rhythm, the kind that made Eli feel both steadier and more exposed. Cole kept him close for most tasks: morning rides out to the north pastures, long hours repairing fences in the far fields, and evenings checking the horses before nightfall. It wasn't unusual for a ranch owner to supervise a new hand, but this felt different. Cole wasn't evaluating him. Cole was learning him, and that left Eli unsure where to place his guard. On the third morning, a cold breeze swept over the valley as they saddled up. Cole handed Eli a coil of rope, their fingers brushing briefly. The touch was nothing, barely a second, but Eli felt it longer than he should. Cole didn't react outwardly, but the slight tightening of his jaw said he noticed too. They rode in near silence, the sound of hooves thudding softly against frozen earth. Eli found himself glancing over at Cole more than he intended. There was something about the rancher's presence, calm, resolute, that made his own heartbeat settle. He wished it didn't. At the ridgeline, Cole finally spoke. "You've been here a week, and you still haven't told me what made you leave your last job." Eli kept his gaze on the valley below. "Because it doesn't matter." "It does if it's still hurting you." Eli swallowed. "Everybody's hurting from something." Cole didn't respond, but his silence wasn't dismissive. It was patient, dangerously patient. He was waiting for Eli to trust him, and that alone felt like a risk. Later that afternoon, Sarah invited them inside again for lunch. Her voice had a softness that reminded Eli of the homes he used to imagine for himself, but never found. She asked polite questions: where he grew up, how long he'd been working ranches, and Eli answered with the safe pieces of a story. She listened with genuine care, yet Eli couldn't ignore the way her eyes flicked toward Cole now and then, searching for something he never offered back. Cole ate quietly, barely looking at her. Eli tried not to notice, but the distance between husband and wife felt like a draft in the room, cold and unsettling. After the meal, Sarah stepped away to prepare coffee, leaving the two men alone at the table. Cole sat with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor as though he was battling thoughts he didn't want to speak aloud. "She deserves better from me," he muttered. Eli froze. Cole hadn't said it to him, not exactly, but he didn't take it back either. Before Eli could respond, Sarah returned, cheerful but tired. She set down mugs and gave Cole a hopeful smile he didn't fully return. Eli felt a knot tighten in his chest. He wasn't used to seeing a marriage unravel from the inside. He wanted no part in it. When the day's work ended, Eli stepped outside to breathe in the crisp air. The sun hung low, golden and heavy, casting long shadows over the fields. He leaned on the fence, letting the quiet wash through him. Peace didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt dangerous, like a calm before something he didn't want to name. Cole joined him minutes later, leaning beside him, but not looking his way. "You're settling in," Cole said. "The horses like you." Eli shrugged. "Animals trust easier than people." "Not always," Cole replied. "Some animals can sense a storm before it hits." Eli didn't miss the double meaning. "I'm not a storm, Cole." Cole turned his head, not fully, just enough that Eli could sense his eyes. "I didn't say you were. I think you're the one who's been caught in too many of them." The words went somewhere deep in Eli, a part of him he kept locked down. He didn't know why Cole's understanding felt both comforting and dangerous. He only knew he couldn't afford either. As dusk settled over the ranch, Cole suggested they check the southern fences. They walked side by side, boots crunching in the dirt. When they reached the old oak tree near the creek, they stopped to rest. The sky above them burned with streaks of orange and violet. "Eli," Cole started, voice lower than usual, "you don't have to hide from me." "Why do you care?" Eli asked quietly. Cole hesitated. Because when I look at you, I see someone trying so hard to hold himself together that he's forgetting he's allowed to break. Eli's breath hitched. No one had seen him like that, not even the man who broke him before. He forced himself to step away, putting space between them. You're married, Cole. I know. Cole's voice cracked just slightly. That's the part I'm trying to fix. Eli didn't know what to say. He didn't believe in interfering with anyone's vows, no matter how complicated. But the honesty in Cole's voice, raw, vulnerable, made it hard to keep the walls in place. They stood in the fading light, the air thick with something unspoken. Cole didn't touch him. Eli didn't move closer. They both held the boundary, but neither stepped fully away from it. When they finally walked back to the house, neither spoke. But something between them had shifted, quietly, dangerously, permanently. And Eli felt it in every step he took across the darkening valley. The storm rolled into Redwater Valley earlier than anyone expected, sweeping over the hills in a rush of dark clouds and restless wind. By mid-afternoon, the cattle in the west pasture were spooked and scattering, forcing Cole and Eli out on horseback just as the first drops of rain began to fall. Eli pulled his coat tighter around himself as they rode hard across the field, Cole pushing his horse ahead with his usual steady determination. Keep them moving toward the gate, Cole shouted over the rising wind. Eli guided his mare alongside the strays, nudging them back toward the herd. The thunder cracked, splitting the sky with a violent tremor, and one cow lurched away, bolting toward the open range. Without hesitation, Eli chased after it, determined to prove he could handle the task. But the ground was slick, and as he leaned forward to gain speed, his horse stumbled. Eli's hands flew from the reins as he slipped sideways, hitting the ground hard. The breath rushed from his chest, and for a moment, all he heard was the hiss of rain on dirt. Eli. Cole's voice tore through the storm. Before Eli could push himself up, Cole was already kneeling beside him, rain soaking both of them through. Where are you hurt? He demanded. Eli winced as he lifted his hand. Blood trickled from a cut across his palm, and the skin around his wrist throbbed. Just slipped, he muttered, embarrassed. Cole didn't hesitate. He grabbed Eli gently under the arms, helping him stand. We're heading to the barn. You shouldn't be in this weather. I'm fine, Eli insisted, even though his head was spinning. Cole looked at him, really looked, and the objection died on Eli's tongue. You're not, Cole said firmly. Come on. The barn was warm compared to the icy rain outside. Lightning crackled across the valley as Cole guided Eli inside, shutting the doors against the wind. The space filled with the earthy scent of hay and horses, calmer than the chaos outside. Cole didn't let go of Eli's arm until he was sure the younger man could stand on his own. Sit, Cole ordered, grabbing a clean cloth from a nearby shelf. Eli slid onto a bale of hay, watching as Cole knelt in front of him. The rancher's hands were steady as he cleaned the cut, his touch careful but confident. Eli tried not to notice how close they were, how Cole's breath brushed lightly against his wrist, how his brow furrowed in concentration. You always push too hard, Cole said quietly. Eli let out a breath. I'm used to being the one who has to. Cole wrapped the cloth around his palm, tying it securely. You don't have to prove anything to me. I'm not trying to prove anything, Eli answered, but the lie was too flimsy to stand. Cole gave him a look that said he knew better. The storm intensified outside, rattling the old wood beams. Cole leaned back slightly, rainwater dripping from his hair onto his shirt. He exhaled, his shoulders rising and falling slowly. I haven't felt this alive in years, he said, almost to himself. Eli's heartbeat stumbled. Because of the storm? Cole shook his head. Because of all this. Eli froze. The air between them felt suddenly heavier, charged like the lightning outside. He stood too quickly, nearly losing balance again. Cole, you're married. The words hung sharp in the dim barn light. I know, Cole replied, voice breaking just enough to reveal the truth behind it. I know, Eli. And that's what scares me. Eli took a step back, needing space, needing air. Then go home. Be with her. Don't make this harder than it already is. Cole stood as well, But he didn't close the distance. He stayed where he was, hands at his sides, breathing like he was fighting something inside himself. "You think I don't want to be the man I was supposed to be?" he asked. "You think I'm not trying?" His voice cracked under the weight of it. "But every day, every hour, I feel the distance growing. And I don't know how to fix something that broke so quietly I didn't even hear it happen." Eli forced himself not to look into those eyes that held answers to questions he wasn't ready to ask. The barn door creaked open. Wyatt stepped inside, shaking off the rain. "Storm's getting worse," he said, then stopped when he saw the two men standing too far apart and yet far too close. His gaze flicked between them, reading more in a second than either of them wanted him to. He walked toward Eli, inspecting the bandaged hand. "You all right?" Eli nodded. Wyatt's expression softened, but his eyes shifted to Cole with a warning he didn't voice directly. "Be careful, both of you. Storms don't just hit the land." When Wyatt left, the barn felt even quieter than before. Cole exhaled shakily. "You should rest. We'll be here a while." Eli sat back down, heart thudding, hands trembling, not from fear, but from everything he wasn't supposed to feel. Outside, the storm pounded against the valley. Inside, a different storm was forming, one they both felt, one neither dared name, one that promised to change everything. The storm finally broke sometime before sunrise, leaving the valley washed clean and eerily quiet. When Eli stepped out of the barn, the sky was a soft gray, the kind that hid more questions than answers. He hadn't slept much, neither had Cole. They'd spent most of the night tending the horses, keeping lanterns lit, and trying not to look directly at each other. Every time Eli caught Cole's eyes, he saw something unsteadily close to confession. Eli walked toward the main house to check on Sarah, who always woke early. But when he reached the porch, he froze. Sarah stood just inside the kitchen window, arms crossed, staring out toward the barn with a look that told him she had heard, or sensed, far more than anyone intended. When he stepped inside, she greeted him with a tired smile. "Rough night out there?" "Yes, ma'am," Eli replied quietly. She set a mug of coffee in front of him. "Cole didn't come in until late. He said you got hurt." "Just a cut," Eli said. "Nothing serious." Her eyes softened, but the worry beneath them didn't fade. "Cole's been different lately." Eli tensed. "Different how?" "Lost," she said. "Unsettled. Like he's looking for something he can't admit he wants." Eli's stomach twisted. He opened his mouth to say something, anything, but a sound behind him made both of them turn. Cole stood in the doorway, damp hair pushed back, face worn from the sleepless night. His gaze flicked from Sarah to Eli, lingering 1 second too long. Sarah noticed. "Cole," she said softly, "can we talk?" Cole hesitated before nodding. Eli stepped back, instinctively creating space. Sarah led her husband to the living room, closing the door behind them. Eli could hear the muted rise and fall of their voices, tense but controlled. He didn't want to eavesdrop, but every word that slipped through the wood felt like a weight settling on his chest. "Is there someone else?" Sarah asked. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. "Because something is pulling you away from me." Cole didn't answer right away. His silence said enough. Eli gripped the countertop, feeling the guilt burn through him like a brand. When the voices stopped, Eli slipped out the back door, needing air. He walked toward the far paddock until the house was a small shape behind him. The valley stretched out in every direction, too open for a man with secrets. He considered packing his things and leaving before he did more damage, before anyone said what didn't need to be said. He didn't hear Cole approach until he was close. "Eli." The single word held too much, pleading, hurt, confusion. Eli didn't turn. "You should be inside." "I should be a lot of things," Cole said quietly. Eli closed his eyes. "I didn't come here to break your marriage." "You didn't break anything," Cole said. "It was already broken. We just weren't brave enough to say it." Eli finally turned to face him. Cole looked raw, like someone stripped down to the truth he'd been avoiding. "You can't look at me like that," Eli whispered. "It's not fair to her. And it's not fair to me." Cole stepped forward but kept enough distance to avoid crossing a line. I don't know how to stop. Eli shook his head. Then you need to figure it out without dragging me into the middle of it. They stood there, the wind brushing cold across their faces, neither able to move closer nor step back. Later that afternoon, Sarah approached Eli while he was loading hay into the shed. She didn't look angry. She looked heartbreakingly calm. I know you care about him, she said. Eli froze. It's all right, she cut in. People don't drift apart because of one person. They drift because of years of silence. Eli lowered his eyes. I never wanted this. I believe you, Sarah said gently. But I also know Cole. He's been unhappy for a long time. And sometimes, people don't realize they're starving until someone finally offers them warmth. Her words hit Eli with quiet truth. Sarah placed a hand over her own heart. What happens next, it doesn't have to be a war. Just be honest. With him. With yourself. Before Eli could answer, Wyatt arrived at the ranch, waving them over. Folks in the valley are talkin', he said grimly. Saw you and Cole arguing near the creek this morning. Word spreads fast. Eli felt his stomach drop. Cole looked furious, not at Wyatt, but at the situation trapping all of them. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Cole finally broke the silence. He walked into the kitchen where Sarah sat, her hands folded on the table. I can't keep pretending, Cole said, voice steady but trembling beneath the surface. I don't know what we are anymore. I don't know how to be what you need. Sarah's eyes glistened, but she nodded. Then it's time we stopped hurting each other quietly. Eli stood in the doorway, unseen, hearing the soft crumble of a life that had been cracking long before he arrived. And in that moment, the valley felt like it was trembling, not from the storm, but from the truth finally breaking loose. By the time morning light slipped into the room, the softness between us felt different, quieter, steadier, like the storm had already passed but left something warm and living behind. I woke up before he did. For a moment, I didn't move at all. I just watched the way his breathing rose gently, his hair a mess over the pillow, the faint trace of last night's worries finally gone from his face. It struck me then how strange it was that a single night could shift the ground under my feet so completely. I turned my gaze toward the window, trying to steady the racing in my chest. Last night had been emotional, yes, but it had also been honest. Maybe too honest. The kind of honesty that lingers, follows you around, asks to be acknowledged in the daylight. I wasn't sure what daylight would reveal. Maybe regret. Maybe confusion. Maybe something neither of us had words for yet. Before I could sort it out, he shifted behind me. A quiet breath, then a soft voice, still heavy with sleep. You're awake already? I nodded, but didn't turn around.
Yeah.
Just thinking. He let out a slow exhale, the kind that tells you he's deciding whether to say something carefully or not at all. Are you thinking about last night? I turned then. His eyes were open, watching me with that same mix of vulnerability and determination he'd shown before. It sent a ripple through me, gentle but impossible to ignore. Yeah, I admitted. I am. And, he asked, though the question held much more. Do you regret it? Do you still trust me? Do we pretend it didn't happen? And I don't know what it means yet, I said truthfully. But I know it wasn't a mistake. A subtle breath of relief washed over his features. He sat up slowly, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Good. Because I've been trying to figure out how to say something to you, and I'd like to get it right. I felt my pulse rise, as if my body already understood this moment would matter. He looked at me, really looked like I was the last safe place he had. Last night, you didn't just comfort me. You understood me. You made me feel seen in a way I've never felt before. And when I reached for you, it wasn't confusion or fear talking. He hesitated, then added softly, it was something I've been trying to ignore for a long time. The room fell quiet, but not the kind that pushes people away. The kind that draws you closer. I shifted to sit beside him. I didn't do anything special, I said. I just stayed.
He shook his head. No.
You didn't just stay.
You chose me.
When I was at my worst. When I didn't deserve it. His voice thickened at the edges, like the emotion was close enough to touch. Do you know how rare that is? He looked down at his hands, then strong hands, suddenly unsure. Slowly, I placed mine over his. His fingers responded instinctively, curling gently around my own, and the connection felt like something we'd both been tiptoeing around for far too long. What happens now? I asked, barely above a whisper. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I don't want last night to be the only time I'm honest with you. He turned toward me then, his expression open and unguarded. It struck me again how far we'd come from the hesitation, the confusion, the breath-held tension that had always lingered in the air between us. Now, for the first time, we were both acknowledging the truth instead of hiding from it. You don't have to figure everything out right away, I said. We can take things slowly. He smiled, small, genuine, relieved. I'd like that. As long as I'm not losing you. You're not, I said. You're not losing me. The weight of those words wrapped around us, warm and grounding. Something shifted then, not dramatic or rushed, just a soft understanding settling into place. He leaned gently against my shoulder, and I let my head rest lightly against his. The moment felt simple, natural, like we had stepped into something we'd both needed for a long time. Outside, the world was waking, birds calling in the distance, sunlight warming the floor, the day waiting for us to join it. But inside that room, the morning belonged only to us. After a long, quiet stretch, he spoke again. Can we start fresh today? Not pretend nothing happened, but not pressure ourselves to define everything either. Yeah, I said. A fresh start sounds good. He nodded, his shoulder brushing mine. Then maybe we can make breakfast together? Something simple. Just be normal for a bit. I smiled at the nervous hope in his voice. I'd like that. We stood up slowly, almost reluctantly, like neither of us wanted to break the fragile peace of the morning. But as we walked toward the kitchen, side by side, shoulders brushing, connected by something unspoken but undeniably real, I realized the fear I'd felt at sunrise had dissolved. Whatever came next wouldn't be rushed, wouldn't be hidden, wouldn't be something built on confusion or guilt. It would be two people choosing each other, even if they didn't have all the answers yet. And for now, that was enough.